Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Marie and today we are working on the next block for our Dear Jane Quilt series. This is actually going to be Cathie's CampFire A5. It is a cute little block. It requires some flying geese block, and so it requires me to do a little bit of math. So I'm going to kind of explain to you on how I make patterns for my quilt block, because when you purchase the Dear Jane Quilt book, it does not give you patterns. All it does is give you the block, and it doesn't tell you how to create the block, it just gives you the block. So what I am doing is I'm actually measuring my block out. I lay a ruler down on the block, and then what I do is I just put the measuring tape against where the block needs to be. Typically for each block, it requires you to add a ½ inch to that block. So for these corner blocks, I'm going to add a ½ inch to what the block size is. But for flying geese block, it's a little bit different. There's multiple ways that you can make flying geese. There's tons of ways to do it. You can search on YouTube on the different methods of making flying geese. I have shown you how I create my flying geese with the 1-2 buckle my shoe block. I'll put a link in the description on where you can find that block on how I created that one. I'm going to use the same method to create this block, and this one actually has 8, so I'm going to be able to use all 8 instead of just the 6. But I thought I'd tell you how to get those measurements. So with the flying geese block, basically you have to measure the size of your block, and then you have to add 1 1/4 inch to the finished size of the block. So in this instance, my block is 1½ inches finished. I need to add 1 1/4 inches to that finished size, which comes out to 2 3/4. Now for the background pieces, the little points in the block, those ones you're going to add 7/8 inches to that finished size, and this one is actually 6/8 for the finished size. So with that, it's going to make the block, or the square that I need to create for that background, it needs to be 1 5/8 inches. So that's how I create the flying geese block. I'm going to go get this cut over at my cut table, and then I will bring you back with all of my cut fabrics and we'll put this block together. This one actually should go pretty quick together because it's just the flying geese units and then it's squares added to the flying geese units. So really this will be a really quick block to make. The only part on the block that's a little bit more difficult is our flying geese, but with this 8 at a time, or it's actually a 4 at a time flying geese, sorry, it's a no waste flying geese block. You can search for that on YouTube and it can give you great instructions on how you can actually create those. That's how I figured out how to do it, is I just did a bunch of YouTube searches. I never go with one YouTube video. I watch multiple videos on how to create something, because I feel like when you do that, you get the best method possible, and it helps make sure that you are doing it right. You're getting more than just one person's perspective on how to create something. So I always watch a lot of them. That's just me. I do a lot of research. So I'm gonna go get these fabrics cut up for our next block, and then I will be back with you guys at the sewing machine and we will continue our journey on this Dear Jane quilt. Okay, so I've got those all cut and I am ready to start getting the flying geese blocks put together. I have got all of my white pieces here. These are the square pieces that I don't need to actually sew, so I'm just going to set those off to the side, and these will be for my flying geese units. I've got on the back of my white pieces, I've got a line drawn on all of them except for one. I'll do that one with you. What we're going to do is we're just going to put the ruler on each point, and then I'm going to draw a line. I'm using a friction pin, even though this is my cut line. It's not my sew line, but it's my cut line, so that line's going to be cut off, so I don't feel bad about using the friction pin. But next what we do is we're going to be putting a block in the corner of each of these, just like we did in the 1-2 buckle my shoe. We're going to put the line so that matches up with the other line. I like to start on this side where the fabric is pointing down over the top of the other fabric so that it holds it in place for me while I'm stitching. As long as we sew to the point, that's really what we need to make sure we're doing. And then I'm going to put my 1/4 inch guide that I have on my machine. I'm going to put that right on the line so that it holds it in place. and then I'm going to sew on each side of the line. So I'll do that with both of those blocks, and then I will be back. Okay, so I got those finished being sewn. Now I'm going to take them over to the cut table, and I'm going to cut them on the solid line that we drew, and then I will get them pressed open, and then we'll come back and we'll get the remaining pieces sewed onto the pieces. So I will be right back once I get them cut and pressed. Okay, so I've got them all pressed open. I've pressed the seams to the white so that they are, it just lays better if they're pressed to the white. And then I've cut off the little dog ears that were on the corners, and now I'm going to sew the last pieces onto these. It's the same process. We're going to be sewing down both sides of our line by putting our 1/4 inch guide on to the line there, and then we just sew down each side. Alright, so those ones are finished as well. We're going to cut on the solid line again, and we will get them pressed open, and I will show you the finished flying geese blocks. So I will get that done, and I'll be right back. Alright, so I've got those pressed open. They still have their dog ears on them. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to trim them up really quick and get all of my little dog ears off. And then the next step is to sew these together, so that we can sew them to our final little blocks and get this block finished. So this was pretty quick. Like the trickiest part of this whole block is these flying geese units, but they don't take long. I mean, it's probably about a 15-minute block if you weren't making a video. It takes a little longer when you're making a video, but it really should only take about 15 minutes to create this one block. So if you've got 15 minutes to sew, you can totally get this one block done in your day. So let's get rid of all of those little clip bits, throw them over into the trash can, or in my case, my other sewing machine table. That'll clean up. Alright, so then these units need to go together, and we're just gonna sew them right on top of each other, just like that. And then we just sew down. It would be better if we sew from this side to make sure that we don't cut the tip of our block off. So just sew down, and my machine struggles with, it's been struggling with getting over bulk of fabric, and I kind of think it's my foot. I'll have to adjust that. So we'll just keep sewing these units together. So when you place the blocks together, the blocks are just going to be faced down. So basically this point now becomes, it goes down instead of pointing up, so that you can put them together. When you're sewing, you're looking for the little V of your stitches. You do not want to go past that V. You don't want to go down like into this section of the V. You want to be above the V in order to not cut the point off of your block, if that makes sense. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'll get these cut apart, take it over to the press table, press them open. Instead of just finger pressing them, I want to press them open. If you're wondering what these little squares are over here, it's just another quilt that I'm working on. I'm always working on a lot of quilts at the same time. But I figured instead of wasting all of my thread on just a starter strip, instead I would sew pieces together while I'm stitching. So these are 1-inch squares that I've cut from scraps of fabric that I've used, or that all that was in the fabric was 1 inch. So I've just basically just got them cut into 1 inches, and then I'm just sewing them together, and I will be making another scrap quilt out of these. So I'm getting 2 quilts done at the same time, and hopefully you'll be able to see that process as well as I go. And I didn't mean to throw those back. I still need those. So I'll go get these pressed open and I will be back. Okay, so once we press these open, as you can see, we haven't cut the tip off of our block. It's still present in all of our pieces, which is what we want to have. This one, it looks like I've sewed a little bit off. I'm just gonna leave it. It doesn't bother me that much, so I'm just gonna leave it there. So now we're gonna sew the block together. And how this block lays out, it's basically one block like that, and then these blocks like that, and then we have our blocks that go here. Let's put that up there. Let's put it here, here, and there. So that's basically how this block lays out, and we're gonna just sew it together. I'm just gonna go down the rows just like this, line them up with our block, and we just sew. Now I am not going to take these apart. I'm going to leave them in the order they're in, because that's the order that they actually need to go in. So I'm going to leave them so that I don't accidentally lose track of where they go. Okay, so I'm still not cutting these apart, and now we just have to sew the rows together now that we've created. And I'm going to make sure that I press my seams, just a finger press. One goes in, one goes out. At least that's how I'm doing this, because that's the way that the blocks seem to want to go anyways. So I'm going with the fabric, with the way the fabric wants to actually position itself. We're nesting the seams on both sides so that we make sure that the fabric is going to lay the way it's supposed to, and then we just get it sewn. Okay, so I'm going to go get this pressed, and then I will show you the finished look once it's pressed open. Okay, so there is the finished block. I've pressed it, I've trimmed it. Got a little bit of loose threads here that we will get rid of that make the block look pretty. I don't know where this thread is coming from, but we'll get rid of it. There we go, that's prettier. So I've got that pressed out. It's now finished. I'm going to take some cute pictures of it, and we are on to the next block. So we are now 6 blocks into this quilt series. I hope you guys are enjoying watching the process, and that if you are new, that you'll subscribe and continue this journey as we get the Dear Jane quilt finished. Thanks again for watching, guys. Have a great day.